What's going on, guys? This is your second stimulus check update, stimulus package update, and stimulus news report for Friday, November 13th. Today we have a lot to go over regarding stimulus, the stimulus talks, regarding COVID, lockdowns. We got a lot to go over. Many things regarding stimulus are heading towards more positive news, some good news. However, as always, we do have some stuff that obviously is not great and is not the best news in the world. So I want to bring that to you in today's video. Also, we have news on potential lockdowns, and some is more positive today. Okay, it is a more positive light. However, there are also bad news regarding lockdowns. So I want to address that as well. And lastly, I want to address what is happening with COVID recently. A lot of people are questioning, why are we seeing so many more cases? What's going on? What can we do to prevent these cases? And I want to explain all of that stuff at the end of this video. So let's first address the good news regarding stimulus and when we could potentially see a stimulus package. First, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer held a press conference yesterday. I addressed what they talked about. I addressed that in a video I did last night. So if you didn't get a chance to watch that, that will be the first link down in the description box below. So make sure you go and check that out. But in this press conference, they gave us some very important details. Yes, they bashed on the Republicans. They addressed President Trump's shortcomings as of late, and they gave us some insights as to what to expect moving forward. They let the American people know that the Biden administration is on board with their plans. This means, and this is exactly what Chuck Schumer said, is that we are going to move forward with the HEROES Act. Now, Chuck Schumer went on to state that they want to use the HEROES Act as their starting point for negotiations. That's where they want to start. However, many people were confused, myself included. As soon as I saw this, then I went back and I watched it again. I actually watched this video 3 times, the press conference 3 times, before I ultimately did a video. And what I learned was Chuck Schumer specifically said they want to go back to the HEROES Act, which Republicans should have passed in May. So he was referring to a $3.4 trillion stimulus package. However, and that's what I reported on yesterday in yesterday evening's video. So you can go and watch that and you can see I am talking about a $3.4 trillion package. However, that video, even though it's accurate, there was one mistake. And it's a mistake on not only my part for not waiting for clarification, but on Chuck Schumer's part for not providing clarification. Hours after the press conference, a spokesperson for Chuck Schumer or an aide for Chuck Schumer and a spokesperson for Nancy Pelosi came out and clarified that Chuck Schumer was referring to the $2.2 trillion stimulus package as a starting point from the Democratic side. So that's good news. That is good news that Nancy Pelosi didn't just all of a sudden throw away the work that her and her caucus has done and to put that $2.2 trillion stimulus package on the floor. I'm glad she didn't just throw that out the door and start with the $3.4 trillion package, because if she would have done that, I don't know how easy a stimulus negotiation would be between Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell, who's at $500 billion. If the gap is $2.9 trillion, what would be the point of even trying to negotiate? It wouldn't happen. Mitch McConnell, after this press conference, he came out and stated that, and I quote, "My view is the level at which the economy is improving further underscores that we need to do something about the amount that we put on the floor in September and October, highly targeted at what the residual problems are." That was his statement. But we also know, after reading multiple reports just this week, is that Mitch McConnell believes a $500 billion stimulus package is all we need at this point. That's what he believes. And he believes beginning stimulus negotiations with $500 billion and beginning the negotiations with Democrat leaders, starting at $500 billion is the best way forward, according to him. However, that means we are still $1.7 trillion away. That's the gap. So trying to narrow down a $1.7 trillion gap is going to be difficult. It will not be impossible. It will be very difficult. I will just interject here and say it would be impossible if Mitch McConnell and the Senate Republicans will not budge off that $500 billion offer or package, and Nancy Pelosi and Democrats will not budge from 2.2. If they're both hardlining on those numbers, there's no in between. That means there will be no stimulus package, which means there will be no stimulus checks, will be no federal unemployment boost, will be no rental assistance, state and local government funding, school assistance, food assistance, and so much more. And let me just give you my personal take on Mitch McConnell's $500 billion stimulus package, proposal or offer. I personally believe this is a joke. This is a joke. And here's the reason why. Mitch McConnell is most likely going to say, let's do $500 billion. That's what we need. And then he's going to take the $300 billion from that the government already has that was already allocated in the CARES Act, and he's going to repurpose and reallocate that money. So essentially, we just have $200 billion in new funding. A total of $500 billion to spend. This means, let me just kind of outline what he would want in this package based on all reports. It's testing, tracing, and treatment. That's going to be roughly $75 billion. Education assistance, let's just say $100 billion, because that's what Republicans have offered before. Let's say PPP funding of $200 billion. And unemployment benefits. Currently, let's just say, 20 million people unemployed. Let's just say at $300 a week per recipient, at 20 million, so that'd be $6 billion per week. Run it for, let's say, 6 weeks. That would be $36 billion. Let's just round up, we'll say $50 billion. So if we add all that up, 75, 250, we're at $425 billion in just 4 things. Just 4 things. Testing, tracing, treatment. It's technically 1. Unemployment, PPP funding, and education assistance. It's 4 things. Now, here's what you need to know. That doesn't even include $250 billion for stimulus checks. That doesn't include $250 billion for state and local government funding that Republicans and Mitch McConnell have even stated that we know state and local governments have currently lost roughly $250 billion. So we can, allocate that money, but we don't want to give anything more. And so essentially he's saying, we know they've lost money, but we don't want to give them money. We're just not even going to work with that. Which that's just going to lead to more unemployment. States and local governments are going to start laying off people. When people get laid off, they go on unemployment, and the job market kind of rolls back. It also doesn't include $50 billion for rental assistance. You know why rental assistance is very important? Okay, and many people don't realize this. I'm going to go a little bit off topic here, but I want to interject here because I think it's important to understand. When renters cannot pay their rent, that means the landlord, who normally is paying their mortgage, is most likely going to take a mortgage forbearance, and they have the legal right to do so. So, as a landlord, I would go and take mortgage forbearance, and I could take that up to 3 months at a time for up to 1 year. Okay, I go and take mortgage forbearance. That means that the lender that I normally pay is not paying my property taxes because that is being pushed back. So now property taxes is not being collected, which means firefighters, police officers, schools, parks, anything that your property taxes goes and contributes to is not being funded. So there's not just the renter and the landlord being affected, it's your city as well, and ultimately your state. So rental assistance is very important, and it's just a small piece. Now, I'm not saying that a $2.2 trillion stimulus package is everything we need. It would be great. It would help out many people. But there are some things in that $2.2 trillion stimulus package that I do not feel, based on all reports and based on what experts, economists are currently saying, that I don't think it's definitely needed. The 2.2 trillion is not essential. Roughly 1.8 would be essential. Anything over that is pretty much just it's just a bonus. So about $400 billion is a bonus on top of that. So as of right now, 1.8 would be a great stimulus package. It would have everything we need. But at the same time, Nancy Pelosi and Democrats want to get a little bit more. And she stated this before, is that now's the time. It would be a missed opportunity. Those are her words. It would be a missed opportunity if we do not take advantage of this time. Well, we'll see what happens. What many experts are anticipating right now is for Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell to work out the differences in a rather quick manner to try and beat the December 31st deadline for multiple benefits. These are things like the eviction moratorium from the CDC. It expires on December 31st. The self-employed unemployment benefit, that expires, and that's also for gig workers. That expires on December 31st as well. And then we also have the student loan deferral program, which is expiring on December 31st as well. So 3 big fiscal cliffs that many experts are saying that they anticipate Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell to work as quick as they can to beat that deadline. And you need to remember, they also have to pass the government spending bill. And that has to be done by December 11th as well. And we still have Thanksgiving. We still have Christmas in here. So there's going to be some times where Congress is not actually working. Some experts are expecting, they expect this, they're not predicting, they expect a stimulus package around $1.2 to $1.5 trillion to pass before the end of this year. They say 1.2 to 1.5 because that is somewhat in the middle of the 500 billion to 2.2. That 1.7, that would be what, about 9, so about 1.35. I believe that's the number. $1.35 trillion would be directly in the middle. I don't think 1.35 trillion is going to cut it. I think Republicans are going to have to push up a little bit higher, and that would include the $300 billion that was allocated from the CARES Act. So if they go to, let's say, 1.5, it would technically only cost $1.2 trillion in new appropriations. So that's not that bad. I think Republicans could get on board with that. If they cannot pass a $1.5 trillion stimulus package, then this will fall into Joe Biden's lap. And by the time, and this is what this report is saying, is by the time this amount of benefit, the benefit that would have came from this stimulus package, right? It would be coming in far too late. It would be very little, far too late to actually provide help. Because Joe Biden isn't coming into office until January 21st. So they don't expect, even if they come to an agreement, let's say January 21st. Joe Biden comes in, saves the day, gets Republicans on board, they support it, gets Democrats on board, they support it. It goes through the House, passes through the House. Well, technically it would have to go through the Congressional Budget Office. They'd have to look this over. It would have to go up and be a bill for, I think, 72 hours for public viewing. And then it would go to the House, then it would go to the Senate, and then it would go to the President's desk for a signature. So looking at, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 6 days, about a week later. So we're looking at the end. So maybe January 28th that we would actually see this bill passed, which means if stimulus checks are in here, which many expect they would be, if it's a bipartisan bill, then we would see stimulus checks like maybe February. Well, okay, again, as long as Steve Mnuchin is still in office, I don't know. I don't think anything's gonna, maybe nothing's gonna change. I have no idea. But if he's still there, he's still the Treasury Secretary. I'd assume we'd see stuff in the first 7 to 10 days. So by February 8th, I think we would see stimulus checks. It's not bad. We could have. It would have been much better if we saw these like, August, 10th, August 15th, maybe even back in June or July. But it is what it is. All right. Hopefully it doesn't take that long. Hopefully we see something in December, maybe November. I highly doubt we see anything in November. Possibly see something in December. There's a chance we could see something in January, but as of right now, if we don't start seeing President Trump speaking, getting out there in the public eye between now and like Thanksgiving, so in about 2 weeks, I don't anticipate to see President Trump anytime in December. And if I don't see him anytime in December, I can guarantee you we will not see him in January. He probably will not go to the inauguration. So who knows? Maybe this was the last time we saw President Trump, and we will only hear from him through tweets. Now, let's address potential lockdowns. Currently, multiple governors are considering a modified lockdown. This would be something very similar to what Europe is doing, and they call this lockdown light. And what this pretty much means is it's a lockdown. It's a pretty much a mandatory stay-at-home order. But they allow you to go out and get about an hour worth of exercise per day. They also allow you to go and run essential errands. If you have to go and purchase grocery products, or you need medicine, prescriptions, things like that. They allow you to go to doctor's appointments that are essential. They allow you to go to school, and they allow you to go to work if you are deemed an essential employee. That would be lockdown light. Currently, many governors are considering this, and this would allow for the economy to continue to get a little bit better, but at the same time trying to crush this virus, as Nancy Pelosi likes to put it. However, even though governors are considering this, if we see a huge rise in COVID cases, which we are seeing, if this happens, then we could see lockdowns. However, Dr. Anthony Fauci, he says that he is opposed to lockdowns and believes that if we step up our efforts and wear masks, then we could prevent a lockdown that would cripple the economy even further. A lockdown would slowly cripple the economy. Lockdown light would still slowly cripple the economy if it's done for too long. If it's done for a week or two, we could potentially get through it. But if it's done for 4 to 6 weeks, it would almost be impossible to not see a rollback in our economy. The good news here is that many governors are taking advice from Dr. Fauci. They are listening to him as the leading infectious diseases expert. That if he says we can prevent this by just wearing masks, limiting our exposure to other people, social distancing, washing our hands, then we will be fine. We do not have to do a lockdown, and that's what a lot of governors are looking at. But the bad news is that when Joe Biden takes office, he is going to have his 12-person COVID task force come in and take over. Dr. Fauci will not be there. So they will have their own way of dealing with this situation. And currently, Joe Biden and his 12-person COVID task force, out of those 12 people, 4 of those people have publicly stated that they would entertain the idea of another lockdown. And one of the people just the other day, he stated a possible 4 to 6 week lockdown at a time would be beneficial if Congress would pass a stimulus package and allow funding to individuals, small businesses, and states so that nobody is really hindered by this lockdown. They continue to provide stimulus to those people, those businesses, those small businesses, and those states, so that nobody really sees any, has any detrimental effect to a lockdown. However, Nobody expects Congress to pass a stimulus package that will provide recurring payments to Americans, recurring payments to small businesses, and recurring payments to state and local governments to entertain this lockdown idea. So right there, it's not great news. And just to give you an idea of what could happen, yesterday, Chicago issued a 30-day stay-at-home advisory. If you live in Chicago, you've probably already heard this. And I believe this starts in a few days, I believe. I don't remember exactly when. I forgot to write it down. Should have done that, but I didn't. Now, a 30-day stay-at-home advisory is the mayor just advising people to stay at home, to slow the spread of COVID, stop going to restaurants unless it's absolutely necessary. Don't go and hang out with friends and family members. Eliminate sports and extra, outdoor activity, especially indoor activities, and don't really have large gatherings like Thanksgiving. And this is seen as the step right before a full-scale lockdown, mandatory stay-at-home, their stay-at-home mandate. So, people in Chicago, just be aware. This is what is happening to you guys, and people across the country. This is what could happen to us if we are not careful. This is to see if the city can limit the spread of COVID. That's all they're trying to do, and get some of it back under control. If they can do that, then the advisory would have worked, and they could continue with that stay-at-home advisory for another 30 days instead of doing a full-scale lockdown like some counties are considering at this point. Now, if this doesn't work, then a potential lockdown might be in order for the entire city until COVID cases decrease. This would not be great. So now let's address COVID and the COVID cases, because we're seeing an increase in numbers. This is ridiculous, okay? So first off, according to the Washington Post, the United States saw 153,000 new COVID cases yesterday alone. Well, that's a little bit of an increase from Wednesday. But according to Johns Hopkins University, their new report says it was 163,000 new COVID cases yesterday on Thursday, November 12th. That's also I believe it was 1,171 deaths included in that. That's ridiculous. That is crazy. Over 163,000 cases in one single day on a Thursday. What's going to happen today? My guess, it could potentially go up to 170, 175. This means that we finally broke the 150,000 case mark. That's seriously hard to say. 163,000 cases, okay? Which means many experts, they were predicting this would not happen until sometime possibly next week or Thanksgiving week, that we would not break 150,000 cases in one single day. That means we're about 2 weeks ahead. That means, and experts were saying that the inflection point, the time that we are going to see the most cases will most likely be, because most people are not going to take experts' advice. They're still going to go and celebrate Thanksgiving with their friends and family, and I get it. But we are in a pandemic. And experts are currently saying that the inflection point of Thanksgiving week has actually been moved back. So we are 2 weeks ahead of Thanksgiving, but actually the inflection point moved back. And so it's actually 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. So let's say December 15th. So now we're about 4 weeks. We are about a month ahead of schedule. So we could potentially see not only 200,000 cases in a single day by Thanksgiving, we could potentially see 250 to 300,000 cases in one single day, sometime in the first 2 weeks of December. That right there is scary. And if we see 300,000 cases in the United States in one single day, I guarantee you, we will see massive shutdowns, massive lockdowns, and widespread stay-at-home orders. That's what we will see. Now, as far as what experts are telling the American people to do, here's what they're telling us to do. Wear a mask, social distance, wash our hands, and avoid large gatherings. That's what they're saying. Now, here's what they're saying. Okay? Have some masks here. I want to explain this. First off, the CDC said yesterday, no single cloth mask is going to work. You cannot have a single cloth mask. It needs to be a double layer mask. Only use double layer at the minimum. This mask right here, which I showed in yesterday's video as well, is a double layer mask. It has 2 layers. Okay? This one would work. This would be an okay mask to wear. Like that. That works. That would be an okay mask. A better option is a surgical mask. Here it is. Has 3 different layers. Has the out layer, has the interior layer, and there's also one in between. This one right here, if I can put it on, works really well. If you can take this mask and then cover it with a cloth mask, which is actually what I recommend, which again, this works really well, I would do that. However, they've also stated before, everyone was saying go and get an N95 mask. Now I have boxes of these. I have boxes of these because I do spend a decent amount of time in stores because I don't like my family to go out. So I do wear an N95 mask. The CDC says, do not go out seeking these masks. Leave these for medical personnel only, or else medical personnel is going to have a supply issue. Okay, I'm not going out and buying any more. I already have these. I purchased these months ago, back in I think April, maybe even right before, maybe March I did. But here's how this would work. Okay, I'd go and put this on. Okay, let me show you how this would work. This is what I do. Okay. So I'd put this N95 mask on. The reason I go and do that and I double it up, they say this is the best mask to wear as long as it doesn't have the vent. Do not use one of these with a vent. Okay? Take one of these and I cover it with a cloth mask. And I do that just because right now I think when people see this mask, yes, they think it's important. Yes, they think it's working. But when people see this mask, then it kind of has that stereotype of, okay, that guy's a nut. That guy's really out there. There's also another mask you can wear that's a full face mask, has 2 vents. It's a credible mask. Okay, I have one. I do not wear it for just everyday use. Okay, that's one that I do keep, but I don't wear it for everyday use. That pretty much, I purchased that in the beginning just to see, okay, is this going to be a really big pandemic where this is going to be needed, or will these masks suffice? As of right now, these are working. Okay, I get tested every couple weeks just to make sure I don't have COVID, but this is what I recommend. So yes, even though I love to use the N95 mask, I do have a bunch of these. Don't go out and buy these, as the CDC already stated. It will limit the amount of stock available for medical personnel. So don't go out and buy these, but if you have them already, you can use them, right? But what I do suggest, get yourself some surgical masks, okay? Double it up with a cloth mask, just like this, just like I showed you, and you should be perfectly fine. Also, social distance, wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, and definitely make sure you do not have large gatherings. So that's what we know right now, and that is what I suggest. So just want to thank you guys for watching today's video. Hopefully you guys have a wonderful day. If you have any questions, whether it's on masks, it's on making money, it's on the stock market, or if it's on stimulus, please ask your questions down in the comment section below. I'm always here to help you out any way that I can. You just have to ask. I know it takes me a little bit to answer your questions. I do get a lot of questions here on the channel, so ask your questions and I'll get to you as soon as possible. Just want to thank you guys for watching today's stimulus update. And if you can do me a favor, go ahead, smash that thumbs up button, because it just helps out the video and this channel. Again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.